fine. So let us start. Here actually, we'll just discuss the syllabus of this complex analysis, and then actually let us see what is the importance of this particular topic as part of UPSC. Now, if you notice in the syllabus, right? So these are actually some of the problems actually that were given as part of UPSC syllabus, right? Now here, if you notice, there is a 10 marks question and there is a 15 marks question, and then actually, so if in this particular case, especially in 2013, 10 plus 15, total actually we have got only 35 marks. And you take this way. See this, in 2014, so there is a 15 marks question, there is a 10 marks question, there is a 20 marks question. In 2015, so 10 marks, 20 marks and 15 marks. Consistently, if you notice, 10 plus 20, 30 plus 15 is 45 marks. And then see this. So even here also, in 2016, there is a 10 marks question and 15 marks and 20 marks question. 2017, 10 marks and 15 marks questions. And 10 marks, 15 marks, and then actually there is a 15 marks question, total 40 marks. And here, if you notice in 2019, 10 marks question, 15 marks question, 10 marks question, and 10 marks question. Total again 45 marks. So in total, if you notice, what is happening is there is a consistency of 45 marks only coming from the complex analysis. Now, these 45 marks, why we are specifically talking about is this is very, very short syllabus in the entire mathematics option. So here actually the complex analysis, the word is complex, but actually the topic is very easy. And there, if you notice, all the questions are mostly from BS Gravel. Actually, I do notice actually almost every problem that was given from there. So for this actually, you can refer only two different books. One is BS Gravel. Mostly it will cover 100% of the syllabus and all the concepts. But if you wanted to cover extra models, then actually you may look for some other book, maybe Sham series like that. But the concepts, everything is covered in BS Gravel itself. And if you notice, most of the problems actually, so see this. See this problem is directly from BS Gravel. And this is also from BS Gravel, right? Yeah, this is directly from BS Gravel, and this is also from BS Gravel, and this is also from BS Gravel. So most of the questions actually you can notice from there. Now here actually, if you notice the syllabus of this complex analysis, it is very, very short syllabus. Let me list down whatever the syllabus it is. Then actually see this complex analysis. I'll just note down this syllabus. Analytic function. The second one is Cauchy-Riemann equations, Cauchy's theorem. Cauchy's theorem. Cauchy's integral formula, power series representation of an analytic function. Representation of analytic function, Taylor series, singularities, Lorentz series, Laurent series, Cauchy's residue theorem, and contour integration. Right? Okay. So this is the entire syllabus of this complex analysis. This is actually very short syllabus in the entire UPSC maths option. Now, if you notice, the entire syllabus is just pointed out from a single point called this analytic function. So here actually, if there is an analytic function meaning if the derivative exists in the entire region, then we say that there is an analytic function. Now for that actually, to assure that analytic nature of any particular complex function, now we have to have certain rules that needs to be satisfied, meaning that is Cauchy-Riemann equations. So those are nothing but the necessary and sufficient condition for the derivative of a complex function to be exist on the entire region specified over there, and those rules are nothing but the Cauchy-Riemann equations. These rules actually are the basis for finding out an analytic function. And then actually, once the function is of analytic in nature, then actually the integral of any analytic function is always equal to 0. That is the statement given by the Cauchy's theorem, that we will prove it. So first we are finding out the analytic function, and for finding out the analytic function, the rules needs to be satisfied that we are assuring it. Then once we conclude it is an analytic function, we are stating that the integral value is straight away 0, and then actually that proof is nothing but the Cauchy's theorem, and the extension of that is Cauchy's integral formula, which essentially means that if the function is not analytic at one particular point, suppose in the entire region, if the function is not analytic at this particular point, meaning the derivative of the function exists in the entire region of this particular circle, but at this particular point actually the derivative doesn't exist for that particular function, then we state that this is a singular point where the derivative doesn't exist, and this is an isolated singular because actually in the entire region in and around actually the derivative exists, hence the function is analytic in the entire region except for this particular point, and this point is called as the singular point. And at this particular point there is something called residue. We are going to calculate it. Now in the case of the singularities, how to find out the integral with the help of the Cauchy's theorem? That is nothing but the Cauchy's integral formula. And then if the function is analytic, then in that particular region that can be expanded as if like it is a power series. Power series meaning a Taylor series or the Laurent series, actually we will be expanding it. Now that is as if like in the case of the complex, in the case of real calculus. So what we do is actually we will calculate. So there actually we will be doing the Taylor series expansion even in the real calculus as well. Now if you notice, the real analysis and the calculus, whatever we do, the same thing is replicated for the complex function. So that is the only difference. So that is why actually whenever we state the number system, there are only two different types of number systems. One is the real number system, another is the complex number system. But rest of the number systems are only the subsets of the real number system. And the complex number system is completely analyzed as a parallel track to the real analysis. That's why we have two different topics called the real analysis and another topic is called the complex analysis. The main difference between these two is, in the case of real analysis, what we are going to do is a number represented on a single line is nothing but the real line. So this is the real line, right? So this is called as the real line. Now any value which you can point out on this, and this if you call this as a random variable called x, then actually a function dependent on only this value is called as a real function. So this is a real function. Now why we have to call as the complex number is, so there is some complexity that is involved, hence we call that as a complex number. Now what is that complexity is, see this here actually, suppose if you wanted to represent a point but not on this line, so here actually somewhere you are representing this point. Now to represent this point you need two different real lines. One is the horizontal real line and another is the vertical real line. These two together constitutes this single point, and which we call this in the Cartesian coordinates as x comma y. Now here actually why we have to treat this as z is equal to x plus iy, which we call this as the complex number. So this is a complex number. Now why we have to bring this complex number is, suppose we take a simple case. Now see this, suppose if I have the ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. Now for this actually we will be finding out the roots of the equation x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a. And here actually there are three different possibilities that we have discussed, and those three possibilities are the real and unequal, the second one is real and equal, and the third one is complex conjugates. So these are three different actually variation of the roots actually that we can notice. Now first of all, what is meant by the solution of the equation here? Now here actually ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0, meaning this can be expressed as y is equal to ax square plus bx plus c and y equal to 0. Now the intersection of these two curves will be the solution for us. So y is equal to 0 and y is equal to ax square plus bx plus c, and these two are actually two different curves where we wanted to find out the intersection of these two. Now if you notice, this is always a parabola. Depending upon the value of a, maybe upward parabola or maybe downward parabola, sorry, maybe left side. So upward and downward parabolas. So y is equal to ax square plus bx plus c, and this can be of this kind of parabola or maybe of the downward parabola. Now if you notice, we have actually two different intersections for the line y is equal to 0, nothing but the x-axis. So x-axis is nothing but the y is equal to 0 line. Hence actually we have got two different intersection points, which we call this as the solutions alpha comma beta. Now suppose depending upon these values of a, b and c, now let us say the curve is of not of this format, but rather actually if the curve is just touching and going. So in that case actually you will be finding only one intersection point for the line y is equal to 0. But this is the second order equation. Hence actually obviously you are expecting that there has to be two different solutions, meaning there are still two solutions, but both are of equal. So this is alpha and alpha. These are the two different roots for the same intersection. So you are stating two different roots where the roots are real and equal. Now, if I take the third case where the curve is actually not even touching this particular curve. So we have got an equation y is equal to ax square plus bx plus c and y is equal to 0. You wanted to identify the intersection points, but these are actually not intersecting to each other. In such case, here actually you are identifying this as one point, and if the curve is at the bottom side, actually the curve is, so this is one more point. Now identifying this point, actually you take till this particular point and then go in this direction. There actually this is alpha and this is beta, and this point is expressed as alpha plus I beta, and this is called as Z1, and this point is treated as alpha minus of I beta, and this is of Z2, and Z1 and Z2 are two different roots. Now here actually we were talking about two different roots because the solution you are expecting two different values. Is the voice clear? The solution you are expecting two different values. Hence actually there are two different roots. Now here actually whenever we wanted to find out the solution, a single number. Now here actually a single number you are expecting, but not on the real line. So hence that number needs to be represented on a plane. Needs to be represented on a plane. So one number, but you cannot represent on a real line. Hence actually you are representing on a plane. Now to represent on a plane, obviously from this particular origin, if you talk about, from here actually you need to travel in this direction till this point, and you need to travel again by taking an angle of 90 degrees in the anti-clockwise direction, and then it will travel to this particular point. So here actually alpha, and with an angle of rotation of 90 degrees in the anti-clockwise direction, and then actually travel for a distance of beta, there actually you will be noticing the solution there. That is as if like this way. Suppose actually I am asking you to find out the solution on this particular line, but that solution is not available there. There is somewhere actually it is available. So that is as if like actually suppose if I am holding this pen, and then actually I am saying that, can you set my pen on the other room? If I say that, immediately the way you respond is, sir, actually the pen is with your hand only. So immediately you will respond in that manner. That way, here actually I am trying to identify the point on this particular line, but it is not here. Rather than that, actually it is available at this location and this location. Hence, actually, the way of expressing the non-real value which is on a plane is one value along the real line and one value by taking an angle of 90 degrees in the anti-clockwise direction, and then actually try to travel that distance to identify that particular point. Now, this value actually you will be representing as alpha plus I beta. Now, this I actually we attributed as anti-clockwise rotation of 90 degrees. So that is the meaning of I. Now let us justify how it is going to be. See this, suppose I take one number on the real line. So this is actually of a length of A. Now if I multiply with A, meaning I am rotating this vector in the anti-clockwise direction for an amount of 90 degrees. So this is what actually we treat this as AI, and that is what is the meaning we attributed now. If I again multiply with I, then actually this will be again rotating in the anti-clockwise direction for an angle of 90 degrees. Then this is going to be of I square into A. And if you again multiply with I, then this is going to be of I cube into A. And if you again multiply it, then actually this is going to be of I power into A. I power 4 into A. Now if you notice, initially on the real line, we noticed that there is a value of A, and the same value is as if like equal to I power 4 into A also. Hence actually I power 4 into A is equal to A, meaning I power 4 is equal to 1. That is one understanding. And the second understanding is the same A in the opposite direction. So I square, and this actually, if you notice on the real line from this origin, this you treat this as minus A, meaning I square into A is equal to minus A. Hence actually I square is equal to minus 1. So this is the second understanding. Now here, even here also, AI, this can be treated as I square into I into A, which is exactly opposite to AI. Then this can be treated as minus into AI. So attributing I square is equal to minus 1. So that's exactly the reason why we call this I is equal to square root of minus 1. So by giving a meaning of rotating the vector in the anti-clockwise direction for an angle of 90 degrees, you can treat that as I multiplication. So that's exactly the reason actually here actually we concluded that this point can be represented as a real number plus I multiplication with a real number will give this particular point. Meaning the Z value equal to alpha plus I beta, depending upon the value of alpha and beta, you can identify any point on this 4-quadrant system. So here actually this is a Cartesian quadrant system, and there actually you can identify any random point depending upon the value of alpha and beta. But in the case of real numbers, what we notice is the line is the real line where the values you can represent only on the line, not on the plane. That is the main difference. So in both the cases, if you notice actually we are trying to identify the point. If you want to identify the point on the line, then that is the real line. If you want to identify the point on the plane, then actually that is going to be a complex number. But if you want to identify the point on a space, then we can call that as a complex number, or actually very complicated number. And that kind of analysis is not there for us, right? So we actually left it only the planar analysis. Now, why do we have to analyze all these things is, this complex analysis actually solved many of the problems in the physics, or many of the problems especially in the fluid dynamics. So as I said earlier, so fluid dynamics, actually many people feel that actually it is very tough subject, but ideally it's not. Why? Because the fluid analysis is nothing but the analysis of complex analysis and the vector analysis together is treated as a single topic called fluid dynamics. So only if you understand the complex analysis concept and the vector analysis concept, that itself actually you study as a fluid dynamics. Only the application of it actually we are solving it there. Now, as it has got a huge number of applications, that's exactly the reason actually why we are going to study the complex analysis. But if you try to represent the point in the space as a complicated number, then that applications are not identified. Hence, actually, we don't study that. So, hence, actually, in the case of complex number, why we call that as a complex is it involves two different real numbers together with a I multiplication. Hence, this is a complex number. Right? So, hence, actually, we call this as a complex number. Now, here, actually, if you want to identify a function, a real function, the way we are analyzing is for identifying the real function is, let us say this is of x. Now, for this real value, you identified one more real line where this y value is expressed as a part of x. So, y is equal to f of x. Here, x is a single number and y is also a single number. And here actually depending upon this x value, the corresponding y value is calculated, and then actually we will try to plot the graph depending upon the function. Now, as we are stating, complex number involves two different real numbers together. That means xy itself, so this x and y together are needed to identify a single point. So this is z is equal to x plus iy is a single point. Even here actually x is a single point, for that actually correspondingly you are calculating the value of y. Now here actually z is a single point on the plane, correspondingly you will have to calculate the functional value. Let us call this as w is equal to f of z. But this z involves two different values, x plus iy. Obviously the resultant also is a point on the complex plane, hence actually this is going to be of u plus iv. Now here, if you try to understand, two independent variables are there and two dependent variables are there. Together, actually, we are forming a complex number or complex function. Here, actually, in the case of real analysis, one independent variable and one dependent variable. Here, two independent variables and two dependent variables together, actually, it will come as a function. So, let us say if you take f of z is equal to log z, then this is as if like log of x plus iy, and x and y together are the independent variables which will decide the value of log z. So here actually this value is u plus iv to represent as if like it is in a graph. In the case of real analysis, for each x value we are trying to find out the value of y, and then actually we try to trace this graph. But if you wanted to identify the complex function variation, then to represent the independent variable also you need a plane, and to represent the dependent variables also you need a plane. So that means you need four-dimensional geometry to analyze a complex function. So as it is very tough to imagine the four-dimensional geometry, the way we adapt is we take two different planes, and each of two-dimensional plane, one plane is called as the z plane, and correspondingly for each point here there will be corresponding values of u and v, and where this is u and this is v, and this is called as a w plane or uv plane, and this is xy plane. For each xy plane point there will be corresponding values of uv plane. So that's exactly the reason in the case of complex analysis you always talk about a region. In that region actually for each and every point the corresponding function, let us say f of z, will give you a set of points here which will again may identify one more region on the uv plane. So here actually for each value on the line there will be a value corresponding to the y, and here for each point in the surface or in the region there will be a point on the region here again. So area to area here, line to line here, vertical line. Got it? So that is the main difference between the real analysis and the complex analysis. So as two numbers are involved together, we call that as a complex number. And obviously, as there is a number, obviously you are expecting a function also. Hence, actually, we were talking about the complex functions, which involves four different variables, two independent and two dependent variables. And hence, actually, whenever we talk about an analytic function, the way we do in the real analysis is, here actually at this particular point, whether the derivative exists or not, we will be calculating it here. Now correspondingly here also, in this particular region, for the function f, with respect to the complex variable z, whether the derivative exists or not, if the derivative exists, that the function, we say that the function is analytic at that particular point. If the derivative doesn't exist, then we state that the function is not analytic at that particular point. And for that, actually, here actually we were directly doing the verification of the existence of the derivative by taking the left limit and the right limit. But here actually it's not that simple. Why? Because this point can be approached not only from left and right, even from any direction. Actually, I can approach this particular point. Hence, actually, in all the infinite directions, if I try to approach it, then the derivative should exist, meaning the limit should exist at that particular point in all the directions, whatever the way I approach it. Hence, there is a complexity that goes to a very high level. So that's exactly the reason actually why we have to have some kind of tool to verify the existence of the derivative. That tool is the Cauchy-Riemann equations. Got it? So it is simple here, but here it is not simple. Only two variations. I can approach this point from the left direction and I can approach from towards the right direction also. But here actually only two directions here infinite directions. So two directions we can manually verify, but infinite direction we cannot manually verify. So that is the reason actually the Cauchy-Riemann equations actually, it will give you a minimum possible requirement where the existence of the derivative is verified. But Cauchy-Riemann equations are also actually not 100% sure that whether the derivative exists always or not. So that's why actually we sometimes actually the Cauchy-Riemann equations are still satisfied, but still the derivative doesn't exist. There are certain cases also, because it is impossible to verify these infinite cases. So that's why a set of rules that we are bringing in to verify whether the function derivative exists or not. Hence, actually, the existence of the derivative will give a lot of flexibility about that particular function. So hence, actually, first we verify whether the function is analytic or not. For that, we will make use of the Cauchy-Riemann equations. And then actually, if the function is verified, then actually different variations we talk about. In the case of the real analysis, if the function is actually derivative exists, then actually any f of x, let us say e power x, is expanded as 1 plus x square by 2 factorial plus x cube by 3 factorial plus x power 4 by 4 factorial plus after infinity, you can expand it. That is the expansion of e power x, which we call this as the Maclaurin's expansion. Maclaurin's expansion. Now this Maclaurin's expansion, so it was derived from the Taylor's expansion. Now why we have to do all these expansions is, here actually there are two different great tools actually in mathematics. So those two tools are, one is the Taylor's expansion, another is the Fourier series. These are the two different important tools which will give lot of flexibility in analyzing the mathematical functions. Why it will give lot of analysis is, here actually the Taylor's expansion, what it states is, you give me any function of your own interest, whatever it may be the complexity of the function, I will give an equivalent function which is a polynomial. See this, here actually it is only x powers are that are involved. You give me any function, whether you give a sin x or cos x or tan x or e power x or a combination of all such kind of functions together, will give you a polynomial result with the help of the Taylor's expansion. And from there actually you will derive the Maclaurin's expansion, and then actually Maclaurin's expansion will easily give this kind of expansion. And the Fourier series is actually one important tool. You give me any function, I will convert everything in terms of the sine and cosines. So if you are very much clear about the analysis of the sine function, cosine function and the polynomials, and that is sufficient enough to analyze any function of your own interest. So these two are the two important tools which will give the flexibility for the analysis of the signals. Hence actually this is one important tool, that is the Fourier's expansion. So that is the Taylor's expansion. And exactly in the similar manner, in the case of complex functions, if the function is differentiable at the region, within this particular region, if the function is differentiable everywhere, then we state that that function is analytic. If it is an analytic function, then you can expand with the help of the Taylor's expansion, even with the complex analysis also. So that flexibility was given, and that was the separate parts actually that we are going to discuss as part of this is the Taylor series and the again this Lorentz series. These are the two different important series actually that will come only in the complex analysis. This Lorentz series actually is only in the complex analysis, that is not there in the real analysis, because the singularities where the derivative, see this, suppose if the derivative exists within this particular region except for this particular region. Hence, actually, in such kind of cases, actually, you will be analyzing the function within this particular region. So this region actually where the function is analytic, hence actually you will be able to expand the function within this particular region as Lorentz series. Suppose if the function is analytic in the entire region, you will be able to expand with the help of the Taylor's expansion. So these are called as the power series representation of the analytic function. And this actually again comes from the fact that if the function is analytic, then we can talk about all these things. And then actually Cauchy's residue theorem and the contour integration. Cauchy's residue theorem is nothing but there is something called residue we calculate where the function is not analytic at that particular point. There is something called residue that we are going to calculate, and that residue calculation will have different methods, and the residue value itself is sufficient to find out the integral of the function. So especially in the case of real analysis, we will be calculating the integrations everywhere. But here actually we don't calculate the integrations at all. But still actually we will directly say the answer of the integrals with the help of this Cauchy's theorem, Cauchy's extension theorem, or the Cauchy's integral formula, and the residue theorem. These are the three different theorems actually which will directly give the answer without even finding out the integral value. So we don't even do the integration at all in the case of this complex analysis. But still actually with the help of the theorems we will state the answers of the integrals. And then there is something called the contour integration actually that comes. So this is as equivalent as that of the line integral in the case of vector analysis. Now the difference between the integral and the line integral or the contour integral is you are talking about the integral value on a particular line. Now actually I will give you a simple example how it is going to be. See this. Let us say there is a force field like this. Now on this force field actually I am trying to move along this particular line. Now if I wanted to move along this particular line, obviously I need to be doing certain work on it. Now as there is a force that is acting on this particular line, then obviously if you want to move it, then the component of the force along this particular line is needed for us. If you want to calculate the force along this particular line, then actually F is this, which is the force field, which is dependent on x comma y comma z, and then actually this vector along this particular line, if I wanted to move it, then actually in this particular direction I will be moving a radial length of dr. Then the dot product of these two, that is the component of the force in this direction multiplied by the displacement moment in that particular direction, that is nothing but F dot dr. These two together will give the work. Now if you notice, this value is calculated only on this particular line. We were not talking about this region at all. So on this particular line actually you wanted to calculate it, and for that actually if you want to move along this particular line, the amount of work you have to do is F dot dr, and along this line actually if you want to do it, you will be identifying the limits of this point, and then actually you will be substituting in this, and then actually you will be calculating the integral value, which we call this as the line integral. And this line integral is as equivalent as that of the contour integral in the case of complex analysis. So here actually a two-dimensional analysis, which is nothing but the complex analysis, the three-dimensional analysis of the same methodology is of the vector analysis. So vector analysis and the complex analysis will go hand in hand. And 2 dimensions if you talk about, then actually that is called as a complex analysis. 3 dimensions if you talk about, then actually that is called as a vector analysis. Why? Because z is treated as x plus iy, or x plus jy sometimes. So this is the value of z. But a two-dimensional vector is always treated as xi plus yj, and this is what is called as the position vector in two dimensions. So this is called as the position vector in 2D. That is, suppose if you take this x-axis and this as the y-axis, a point at this particular point, if you want to represent in the vector notation, this is represented as r is equal to xi plus yj, where I is the unit vector in this particular direction, j is the unit vector in this particular direction. So along the direction of x for an amount of x and along the direction of y for an amount of y, which will represent a position vector r is equal to xi plus yj. And the same point in the case of complex analysis, we represent this as z is equal to x plus jy or x plus iy, and both are one and the same. And this actually, instead of I, actually it is always understood that rather than multiplying with I, you always treat that as a real line. So hence actually you don't need to multiply any value, but still you interpret as the direction of x as the real line, or the unit vector in the direction of x we treat as I. Whether multiply or not, actually this is always treated as the I direction. And here j is actually as if like if you multiply in the vertical direction, as if like it is in the vertical direction. Hence actually jy or in the direction of y vector, both are one and the same. So in the case of vector analysis, same thing is extended for z also. That is, a space representation of a point is xi plus yj plus zk, and this is the space representation, and hence actually this is a three-dimensional vector. But here actually we will be restricting our analysis only to the two-dimensional vector. Hence actually we stop at z is equal to x plus iy. But only difference is in the algebra. So whenever we talk about the algebra, obviously we'll be talking about the multiplication, division, addition and all. Now there actually, in the case of vectors, we have only two different kinds of multiplications, dot product and the cross product. But you cannot multiply a straightforward multiplication of two different vectors. Suppose if I say that r1, r2, which are two different vectors, this is of meaningless. So this is meaningless because actually there is nothing defined in vector algebra, the direct multiplication of r1 vector and r2 vector. But if there is a dot or there is a cross, then that is meaningful for us. But in the case of complex analysis, there is a meaning that is established even for z1, z2 also. So here actually, this is the direct multiplication is involved in the case of the complex algebra. But here in the vector algebra, actually only the dot product and the cross product are the only ones which are specified depending upon the application. So if there is a perpendicular component of the force that is useful, then we call that as a cross product. And if there is a parallel component that is useful, then we call that as a dot product. But here, in the case of complex analysis, there is nothing like that. You can straight away multiply with the vector with an interpretation that suppose if z is equal to x plus iy, then mod z is treated as x square plus y square under root, and then the angle that is made from the x-axis is going to be given by tan inverse of y by x, or this is sometimes even be represented as r at an angle of theta, where this is theta and this is the value of r at an angle of theta. Now one number is z1 is equal to r1 into theta 1 and z2 is equal to r2 theta 2. Then the multiplication of this is z1 z2 is the straightforward multiplications of r1 r2, and the angle of rotation is theta 1 plus theta 2. That means in the meaning of this is, if you multiply with any complex number, then it will scale the value of that number by an amount of mod z, which is given by the multiplicated value, which is nothing but r1 in this case. If you multiply r2 with r1, r2 is scaled by an amount of r1, and then actually the angle of the vector is going to be rotated. Suppose I just do it here. See this is r1. This is r2. Now here r1 at an angle of theta 1 and r2 at an angle of theta 2. Then the product of these two, the direct multiplication of these two values will give you a different value, which is equal to r1 plus r1 r2. So r is equal to r1 r2. And then the angle is theta 1 plus theta 2. So this is the value of r is equal to r1 r2, but the angle is of theta 1 plus theta 2. This is the meaning of the multiplication. So this is the only difference between the vectors and the complex analysis. Got it? So straightforward multiplication is valid here, and there actually straightforward multiplication is invalid, and two-dimensional vector can always be treated as a complex analysis vector. Got it? Any questions on this? Now, with this understanding, so here actually the contour integration. So contour integration is nothing but as if like it is a line integral in the case of the vector analysis. So there actually some of the real integrals actually which cannot be solved with the help of the real analysis, those integrals we will be able to solve, especially the infinite integrals. So with the help of this contour integration. So there actually we have got certain applications. Hence actually we will be studying this contour integration as part of the complex analysis. Got it? Any questions on this? Yeah, so this will be rigorously used in fluid dynamics, especially the vector analysis and this complex analysis will be rigorously used. If you study only these two topics, you need to study only the physics concept like the Bernoulli's principle and the Stokes equation. Such kind of basic principles actually you will have to study, and the application of this actually will be directly the fluid dynamics. Right? Any questions? Why 4D plane? Because actually there are two different independent variables, two different dependent variables are there. So four variations are there. If you wanted to represent four variations, then actually you need to represent in a four-dimensional geometry, which is not possible. Hence actually we divide the four dimensions into two different two dimensions. So one is the Z plane, another is the W plane. Got it? So W involves U plus IV. And Z involves X plus IY. So total four different variations are there. Any other questions? Fine. So here actually with this understanding, then actually we notice that actually the analytic function is the only single point contact for this entire understanding of the complex analysis. So analytic function, identification, and the analysis and the applications. So this is the summary of this complex analysis. That is why I say that actually this is the smallest possible syllabus, or in fact actually this is a single line syllabus for the entire complex analysis, but still it has a weightage of 45 marks. So consistently the 45 marks, mostly the questions actually I noticed from BS Gravel and some other actually sham series actually you can follow. So other than that actually you don't need to go anything extra, but you cannot afford to leave any question from this complex analysis because this is easy. Got it? Any questions you can let me know, or else actually we will straight away start the topic from tomorrow onwards. Yeah, that's all. Yeah, thank you.